It's true that I've been on a lot of panels about torture, with some of the people on this panel, as Dahlia said. But the reason why I was so intrigued by this one is because it touches on an issue that we really haven't addressed yet in all the panels that I've been in and the discussions that I've had. And it's the one that really, I think, is the most, in some ways, the most important and the most infuriating to those of us who've been trying to push for change in this area. And that is, you know, we have Human Rights First, my organization, we have an answer to this question: what should President Obama do? I brought these all for you. It's a blueprint: how to end torture, how to close Guantanamo, and we have all these steps: first month, 6 months. But what's not in here, and what really doesn't get much attention, is how do we as Americans reclaim the language that, that is used to describe these horrible abuses. And this is something that's very, I mean, I don't know if you saw recently, I guess it was just this, was it on Sunday, the Vice President still pushing this idea that, you know, and there's a reason for it. I think, you know, when you say we can stipulate that the United States has engaged in torture, yes, we can stipulate that. But as I travel around the country, I can tell you that this is not broadly accepted by Americans. Our fellow Americans, most of them, define torture as something we would not do. And that's the definition. If we do it, then it's not torture. And the Bush administration has been very, very successful at changing people's mindsets about how we think about these terrible things. And that's why I think one of the most important things that we have to do is get information out about not definitions. The definitions are in the law. Dahlia asked us to talk about the law. You know, international law defines torture. It also says that that countries should not send people to places where there's a substantial likelihood that they would be tortured. The domestic law defines and criminalizes torture. The idea that torture is, or the Geneva Conventions say, or cruel treatment is somehow unclear was a brand new concept with this administration. And yet now it is widely accepted, I think, that torture is something that we would not do. The fact that it's something we did do has not yet created the kind of cognitive dissonance that we need broadly in order to fix this. I think one of the most important things that we have to do going forward is to reclaim the language. And that is that's a job not so much for the lawyers, but for the writers. And it could not be more important. I think, you know, as you read, and the press has not been supremely helpful to us in this struggle to reclaim the language. You know, torture, if you read any article about torture, almost all of them refer to a technique as harsh or severe or tough. Parenthetically, something human rights groups or some critics of the administration describe as torture. That is that's the way this is talked about broadly in the public. And so those of us who believe that the law means what it meant when it was enacted are considered somehow a fringe group that's pushing an alternate reality on the American public. That's a very, very steep hill that we have to climb and get over. And I do think that there's quite a bit that President-elect Obama can do, even starting now, but really starting with the inaugural address, to start to reclaim this language. And one of the things I think we need to do in order to bring more people in this country along that journey is to say for the President to say, and we've urged him to say in the inaugural address and elsewhere in executive order, that we will never do to a prisoner anything that we would not accept being done to our own people in enemy custody. That way we get away from the battle about the definitions, the legal definitions. I mean, you know, the problem here is that, you know, the lawyers, it was a learning. I've been working on these issues for 20 years, and as a lawyer, and it was somewhat of a shock to me to see how little the law mattered, and really how important the lawyers were, for better or for worse. And I think there's a lesson in that in terms of what we do going forward. I think we don't necessarily need a whole lot of new laws. There's plenty of laws on this. What we need is a good faith interpretation of those laws, and more broadly to reclaim the language of torture so that it means what it means.